Breaking tonight, more than 3,000. British travelers have been banned from entering Europe, and the crisis could soon affect many more. At this hour, thousands of passengers are stranded at airports across the UK, unable to board flights to Finland, not because of terrorism, not because of health restrictions, but because of a new digital border system that almost no one knew existed. If you're planning to travel to Europe, you need to pay close attention, because what started in Finland is about to spread across the entire European Union. It's 5 a.m. inside Heathrow's Terminal 3. Sarah Mitchell, a 34-year-old teacher from Kent, stands at Gate 27 with her 2 children, ready to fly to Helsinki for her sister's wedding. Her bags are checked, her passport valid, everything in order. But when she scans her boarding pass, the gate screen flashes red. Entry data missing. Moments later, the gate closes. The flight is canceled. No explanation, just confusion and panic. And Sarah is far from alone. Across London, Manchester, Edinburgh, and Birmingham, the same scenes are playing out. Business executives are missing crucial meetings. Students are being blocked from study programs abroad. A retired couple, who sold everything to start a new life in Lapland, are now stranded in a premier inn near Gatwick. One passenger told Sky News, "They said my passport wasn't linked to something called EES. I've never even heard of it." So, what exactly is the EES? It stands for Entry-Exit System, the EU's new digital border control mechanism designed to register every non-EU traveler entering the Schengen zone. In theory, it's simple. Before traveling, passengers must pre-register biometric data, fingerprints, facial scans, passport details, all stored in a central EU database. The system was intended to enhance security, modernize travel, and speed up border crossings. But in practice, it's become a bureaucratic nightmare. Most British travelers had no idea it was mandatory. Airlines weren't prepared. Border staff weren't trained. And Finland, the first EU country to enforce the policy, did so with virtually no warning. What was meant to be a technology upgrade has turned into a full-blown travel crisis. A bureaucratic ambush that's left thousands stranded and confused. Behind the scenes, Finnish border authorities reportedly sent a directive to UK airlines just 48 hours before the new rules took effect. A senior British Airways official, speaking anonymously, said there was no time to update our systems or properly inform passengers. Staff received no training on EES protocols. When the first flights landed in Helsinki earlier this week, border control systems immediately flagged unregistered British passports. The automated response refused boarding at origin. The result? Thousands of passengers grounded, hundreds of flights canceled, and outrage erupting online. And now what began as a travel disruption is fast becoming a political storm. Conservative MP Daniel Hargreaves has accused the government of incompetence, calling it another example of Labour's failure on post-Brexit travel. Nigel Farage, speaking on GB News, seized on the moment, declaring, "This is exactly what happens when you hand control back to Brussels. Starmer's government rolled over on border cooperation, and now ordinary Brits are paying the price. This is what surrender looks like." Downing Street insists the issue lies with EU enforcement. A government spokesperson said officials are in urgent contact with both Finnish authorities and the European Commission to resolve what they describe as an unexpected enforcement decision not properly communicated to the UK government. But public anger is mounting. On social media, Starmer travel crisis is trending. TikTok is flooded with footage of stranded families and abandoned boarding gates. And beneath the frustration lies something deeper. A question about control, sovereignty, and broken promises. Because this isn't just about one chaotic morning at Heathrow. It's about what Brexit was meant to represent. Independence, border control, and the freedom to travel on our own terms. Yet today, British citizens are discovering they can't even board a plane to Europe without approval from a Brussels-run database. Brexit, we were told, would restore Britain's independence, the power to make our own rules, control our own borders, and chart our own future. But tonight, many are asking a difficult question. If British citizens now need digital permission from Brussels to board a flight to Europe, what control do we really have? And the concern is only growing. The Entry-Exit System, or EES, is not a one-off Finnish policy. It's the start of a Europe-wide rollout. Over the next 12 months, Every EU member state, from Spain and France to Italy, Greece, and Portugal, will activate the same biometric border checks. If Finland's enforcement is a preview of what's to come, millions of British holidaymakers could face the same chaos by next summer. Imagine planning your family trip to Spain, booking hotels, arranging time off work, only to be turned away at Gatwick because your biometric data wasn't uploaded correctly. That's no longer a far-fetched scenario. It's now a very real risk. And behind every canceled flight is a personal story of loss and frustration. Lucy Walker, a 29-year-old nurse from Bristol, was due to be a bridesmaid at her best friend's wedding in Helsinki. Through tears, she told reporters, "I saved for months, bought the dress, took time off work, and now I'm sitting in Heathrow with no answers. No refund and no way to get there. I've missed the wedding. My best friend's wedding." Gareth Thompson, a software engineer from Manchester, spent over $600 on emergency hotels and taxis, desperately trying to reroute through Sweden, only to find the same restrictions applied there too. He told journalists that airline staff were just as confused as the passengers. They kept saying they were waiting on guidance from headquarters. Even the supervisor didn't know what to do. His question echoes across social media tonight. How can a system be implemented that no one understands? Online, the backlash is enormous. Videos of stranded families, tearful students, and furious travelers are flooding TikTok, X, and Facebook. One retired couple, who sold their cottage in Cornwall to start a new life in Lapland, are now stuck indefinitely in a budget hotel. University students have missed Erasmus study placements in Helsinki. Some may lose an entire semester. Others have missed funerals, business deals, and life-changing opportunities. The anger, however, isn't directed solely at Finland or Brussels. Many are now turning their frustration toward Westminster. A caller on LBC summed it up bluntly. "We were told Brexit meant taking back control. Now we can't even get on a plane without the EU's permission. What was the point? So who exactly is to blame?" Finland's Ministry of the Interior has been quick to defend its position, issuing a carefully worded statement. Finland has implemented the EU entry-exit system as required by European law. All third-country travelers, including UK nationals, must comply with these regulations. We have followed proper protocol. Translation: the fault lies with Brussels. The European Commission, for its part, has echoed that stance. A spokesperson said, "Britain was formally informed months ago through diplomatic channels about the EES implementation timeline. But British diplomats tell a very different story. They claim Finland jumped the gun, enforcing the rules weeks earlier than other EU states, creating confusion that could have easily been avoided." An unnamed EU source, quoted by Politico Europe, described it as an unfortunate misunderstanding. They added, "Member states retain discretion over their enforcement dates. The UK delegation will be kept informed moving forward." In other words, a shrug from Brussels. No apology, no admission of error, just the usual bureaucratic deflection. Meanwhile, other EU countries are quietly learning from Finland's misstep. Spain, Greece, and France have all postponed their own ES enforcement to avoid precisely this kind of public relations disaster. They've watched the headlines and said, quite clearly, not us. Finland, however, pressed ahead and is now caught in the center of an international blame game, with thousands of ordinary travelers paying the price. This controversy is now spilling over into Westminster, where it threatens to become a political flashpoint. The government insists it's working urgently with both the European Commission and Finnish authorities to restore order. But the images tell their own story. Confused passengers at UK terminals, staff with no answers, and a public rapidly losing patience. And politically, the stakes for Prime Minister Starmer are high. This was supposed to be the post-Brexit era of stability, a chance to show competence after years of turbulence and scandal. Yet the sight of British citizens grounded by a system nobody warned them about undermines that very promise. It raises a fundamental question that goes far beyond airport terminals. If Britain can no longer guarantee its citizens smooth, independent travel across Europe, what did taking back control really achieve? In Westminster tonight, ministers are facing growing pressure to explain how this could happen, and more importantly, how soon it can be fixed. Opposition MPs have accused the government of sleepwalking into crisis, Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper told reporters. The government was warned repeatedly that digital border checks across Europe would cause disruption. Instead of preparing travelers, they chose silence. That silence has become politically costly. For weeks, the government's post-Brexit narrative rested on stability, stronger borders, smoother trade, restored trust. But as images of stranded families dominate headlines, that narrative is starting to unravel. Inside Downing Street, officials insist they're working constructively with EU partners, but privately, diplomats admit they were caught off guard by the speed of Finland's rollout and the lack of coordination from Brussels. One senior advisor described the situation bluntly. "We're discovering in real time what third country status really means." And that is the heart of the issue. When Britain left the European Union, it also left the digital systems that once made travel frictionless, the databases, border networks, and shared protocols that connected airports across the continent. Now each of those systems must be renegotiated one by one. Every fingerprint scan, every data form, every travel permit, all governed by a patchwork of bilateral talks. In short, sovereignty now comes with paperwork. The public may not have voted for that, and yet it's the tangible reality of global Britain. In 2025, a nation navigating independence, but still dependent on its neighbors for access and approval. What makes this moment particularly sensitive is its timing. The European Union is preparing for its full ease launch early next year, just months before Britain's summer travel season. If the Finnish model spreads, the government could be facing not hundreds, but millions of delayed passengers by July. A senior airline executive told the BBC, if even 5% of British travelers experience issues with biometric registration, airports will be overwhelmed within days. We're talking about potential gridlock. Industry groups are already calling for emergency talks between London and Brussels to establish a fast-track or exemption system for UK citizens. But Brussels appears reluctant to grant special treatment, wary of setting a precedent that other non-EU nations might demand. The Prime Minister, meanwhile, is walking a political tightrope. Any public confrontation with Brussels could revive old Brexit tensions. Yet a passive response risks accusations of weakness, the very charge that has haunted several of his predecessors. The coming weeks will be crucial. Foreign Office officials are drafting contingency plans. Airlines are demanding clarity, and the press is circling for accountability. What began as a bureaucratic glitch has become a test of Britain's post-Brexit credibility, a moment that forces the question no government wants to face. Did we truly gain control or simply trade one form of dependence for another?